Jane Doe Appeal and Protest Statement, January 16, 2024. Many of us alleged Jane Does have been silent throughout the months of the 3 IHOP-PKC investigations and difficult ordeal. While other voices have chosen to clamor loudly and insistently, we have maintained our silence, desiring to retain whatever measure of privacy of life we could that was left after our lives were invaded by the violating behavior of those involved in a calculated Jane Doe campaign that is being done in the name of love, transparency, justice, and advocacy. While a narrative has been presented of many female victims whom the advocate group is representing, the true story that has not come out is how many of those victims were involuntarily labeled that and had narratives constructed by others forced upon our lives that we have been forced to defend ourselves from. This has been painful, humiliating, and traumatizing to all of us. Some in the advocate group keep stating that victims have been intimidated to come forward to talk to legal investigators. This is untrue. We have engaged with the 3 investigative legal teams that IHOP-PKC has brought in. Though all the legal teams have been professional and respectful, the nature of the circumstances and its necessary questions have caused us to endure recurring humiliation, distress, trauma, and pain, as we have had to have repeated conversations about humiliating topics concerning the insinuations and suggestions that others have projected onto our lives and workplace dynamics. Behind the scenes, we have been harassed, secretly recorded, had family members contacted, had our phone numbers given out, and been bullied and pressured to admit to being victims. And when we have refused such untruths, we have been gaslit, told that these people know the true stories of our lives better than we do, and had the narratives they have formed about our lives suggestively put in media articles and social media posts, or threatened to be put in public articles. When we refuse to capitulate to the narratives being promoted about our lives by some of the advocates, we have been threatened, called liars, Stockholm syndromed, accused of covering up, being mentally compromised, having memories repressed, being complicit, and even suicidal. Now some in the advocate group are insisting on a 4th investigation, putting us through even further anguish and injustice, while they themselves have as of yet refused to be formally investigated even once by a legal team in context to their character, narratives, or the processes by which they have promoted various accusations against many of us. We are exhausted, humiliated, and done. We appreciate the concern for others who express victimhood, but frankly, there is another group of victimized women here. The women, and former women, of this house who have been forced to engage in this horror show against our will for the sake of someone else's agenda against Mike Bickle and IHOP-PKC, while some in this group, comprised primarily of what would be considered righteous men of God, have clamored loudly and insistently and forcefully that they are advocates of a series of abused women. The truth is that in reality our lives have been bullied and abused by them. They profess an adamant knowledge of our victimization and credible evidence that suffices it. These are all based upon second-hand stories and hearsay. Not one of them has ever spoken to any of us except Jane Doe number 3, only to have the testimony of her own personal life story refuted to her face, and overridden by their insistence that they knew her life story better than she. May Jesus strengthen her in this hour. Meanwhile, some of these men continue to boldly declare to the world that they are the advocates of multiple victimized women, all while having their foot on our necks in full refutation of the actual narrative of our lives. They are determined that their narrative of our lives will be established as the truth about our lives. Our voices mean nothing to them. The idea that all the men in this group and some of those closely working with them are advocates of abused women is self-righteous posturing that is better defined as this group are advocates of women who agree with their narrative. If you don't agree with their narrative, you become just as abused by their hands as the women they claim to represent. As a result, our names, our life narratives, and our spiritual family have been forcibly smeared. The damage done has been devastating and cruel. We are simple, quiet people who just wanted to worship Jesus and pray for the nations. We wait for the throne room judgment of Jesus Christ, when all true things will be laid bare and vindication will be eternal. Our appeal is that they stop harassing, bullying, and shaming us in public and private. Our appeal is that we not be forced to endure the trauma and humiliation related to another round of investigations by a fourth professional team, as some in the advocate group are insisting upon. In grief, painful endurance, and unified agreement, the accord of at least 5 Jane Does, as identified by the advocates and some of those associated with them.